I understand there's some controversy brewing about how many subscribers you have on YouTube. You have more subscribers than anybody. And it's probably the biggest, largest YouTube subscription that anybody's had. But also, it's not numbers that matter, Nick. And I know everyone's going to quibble over this, but it's content. It's quality. And your subscribers are amazing. They're great. They're high quality subscribers. And that's really what you have to look at. Don't just focus on the numbers. I mean, if people are spewing a bunch of fake news, just don't get in the mud. They're amazing folks. Their engagement, the way that they like the videos. Anyway, I hope this puts this to the end. I hope that this controversy is over and we know who the real YouTube subscriber champ is. And it's you, Nick.
Whoa, are you okay? Yeah, sorry. I'm a Rick from another reality. I got uploaded to your clone vat. Hey, don't worry about it, man. I have a dozen. So tell the truth, man. No shame. You're looking at your shrimp body like, what? Is it that obvious? I'm sorry. Yeah, my original body is more bipedal, ape descended. Really? Weird. Does your house look like a tree, or? No, it looks like this. It's, like, identical to this, actually. And it's such a mindfuck. It's all good, man. I'm fine with it. Honestly, you're doing me a huge favor by being shrimp instead of fascists. What? God damn it, when did this shit become the default?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Downtime. My name is Nicholas Lamar Suter. Thank you guys so much for joining us. So, you guys are actually in for a special show tonight. We're going to do a couple of things, I think, a little differently. First of all, this is actually, I think, my first downtime on my own. We normally do downtimes on Thursday. Commander wasn't able to make it, and we had some news anyway that we went with. There's a little news now. The appeals court has shot down Trump's tariffs again, so he lost in the New York Trade Court, and he appealed the loss. He lost 4-7, or 7-4. I'm surprised he even got the 4. I'm disappointed he got the 4. It's not going to go before the Supreme Court, and for the life of me, I can't find anyone willing to go on the record as to what they think the Supreme Court is going to do, which is both concerning and reassuring at the same time, oddly. If they overturn his tariffs, it will be one of the biggest blows to a presidential agenda that I've ever heard of. So they've given him the tariffs, all the tariffs, essentially all, I think there's one or two exceptions, but for the most part, all the tariffs that he has threatened, that he has levied, will expire in October. Mid-October, the court has given him some extra time to appeal to the Supreme Court, which he's going to do, and we'll see. So far, the Supreme Court's handed him absolutely everything, but this is crazy. And so we'll see just how crazy they're willing to get. They have on occasion stood up to him on smaller issues, and they've kind of whined a little bit about how he treats judges. So we'll see. But we were doing yesterday's show, and I was looking in the comments, and I'm going to get to the comments. I enjoy replying to people's comments, especially the trolls. I have a lot of fun with the trolls. They don't get the dry wit, and it doesn't come across, but people who know me are like, oh. But anyways, as somebody pointed out, they said, okay, if you really want to see where this gets serious, because we start talking about, and I said this wasn't just, clickbait. I was like, look, we're starting to see evidence of crimes committed by Epstein that dwarf the sex trafficking of minors. Holy smoke, what do you have to do for that to be a footnote in your criminal record? And so we started talking about that yesterday, and so somebody in the comments pointed out at the exact timestamp. They're like, yeah, this is where we start getting into it. It was like, so we're sitting here And In Time has downtime, in part to try to decompress a bit from the news. And we haven't been doing as much of that as we'd like, because there's just been stuff we need to cover. And I'll be honest, Commander McMillan is a genuine friend. We don't, we don't talk as much as we used to. We used to talk a lot more frequently. That's entirely my fault. I got to call the guy more. But Lance is a friend, and he is someone that I call. If I've had a tough day, I'll give him a call. He knows better than to call me if he's had a tough day, because I'm worthless. But just kidding. And so we'd have these chats, and so many times too. And Zandering is a friend as well. Zandering's not just he's a friend. He's been a friend for a while. And so he and I'll chat sometimes like, shit, why didn't we record this? And especially when we're talking not about the news, but about the things that trouble us. And somebody had pointed out earlier to me, I think it was actually Titan, sort of, that basically everybody's got problems. You look at some people, Barack Obama, you look at him, you're sitting there going like, he's on top of the world, this guy. I mean, he was president of the United States, he did all these, he's had problems we can't even imagine. And so, most people, and I remember getting onto a bus once with a friend of mine, and the bus driver was rude, and my friend said, all bus drivers I've ever seen are rude. What is it about being a bus driver that makes you rude? And the first thought that crossed my mind is, well, if you're sitting there saying this is what my life has come to, I suppose. But having said that, maybe this bus driver is a perfectly nice person and just happened to, on that day, had a bad day. We all have bad days. We all have good days. And we all have these hidden traumas that we keep hidden for a variety of reasons. Some of them not all that good, some of them very good reasons. I have a bumper sticker. Had this bumper sticker since I've had a car. You can't buy it anymore, so I had to have one custom made, but it's a quote from Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. If we could read the secret histories of our enemies, we would find in their lives enough suffering to forgive all hostility. Life is not quite that black or white, but he's not that far wrong either. We all suffer, and I tell my girls, bullies usually come from suffering. People who bully suffered greatly, and the way that they get catharsis out of it is they bully back. That's one of the things about Trump. Trump growing up, his dad must have been a piece of work. We already know that. And Trump is probably one of the more miserable SOBs I have ever seen. Now, this isn't true of all despots and all terrible people. There are terrible people who will die happy, and they'll die with loads of money, because life isn't fair. But in general, life's actually pretty good. Life's been pretty good to most of us, not all of us, but to most of us. So we're sitting here, this is a news show, and it's been getting a little rough on all of us, myself included. We're sitting here talking about RFK getting rid of the Centers for Disease Control. Now, I don't know what you know about diseases, but let me tell you what I know about diseases, which is they can infect anybody. They're really bad. Some of them are like flesh-eating. Some of them are just like the common cold. But even the common cold, the older you get, So my thinking is fighting those things is probably worth it. And we've got the science to do it. But you got brainworm guy in charge. And he's not in charge because he's competent. We all know this. He's in charge because he's a sycophant. And all the sycophants and everyone who's willing to... And this is just crazy. And when we were talking about Peter Thiel yesterday, I think a lot of people started to say, okay, here's a guy who it may well be is in a informal, maybe even a formal, maybe it's skull and bones, I don't know. I'm going to argue it's an informal cabal of the richest, most powerful people who are sitting there with Benjamin Netanyahu, and at one point maybe even Jeffrey Epstein, sitting here saying, how can we make money and subjugate as many people as we possibly can? And Peter Thiel wants to remove women's right to vote. And so we're sitting here covering this, and this can get really depressing. And so for this downtime, I said, let's talk about how bad it isn't. That's what Mowdy would say. Mowdy came up with downtime and say how bad it isn't. And I'd like to point a few things out. First of all, I'm what they refer to as a big thinker. And this is a thing. And I forgot to Google, and I used to know, because I'm a teacher, you're supposed to know these things, but, you forget. But there are people who need to build up the big picture. They start with the little details. You give them the details, and then they build up and they figure things out. I hate the details. I start with the big picture. That's why when we did the video of Epstein, and I said, we're going to start with where he was born. And people are like, wait, what? Who cares where he was born? We care about his crimes. I'm like, no. We're going to see the big picture. Who is he? Where was he born? What was his first job like? And people who've seen that video have said, wow, that really provides context, actually, learning what he was like growing up. I have to see the whole thing first and then work my way down to the details. So, in keeping with that, the Arabs used to be the masters of art, science, culture. This was for about 400 or 500 years. And believe it or not, they found warrant for this in the Quran, because the Quran said that the exploration of science was a worthwhile endeavor. It wasn't until A, they were invaded by the Mongols, but B, unfortunately I've spaced his name. Let me see, did I maybe keep it here? No, I don't have his name, but, maybe I do have his name. The philosopher Al-Ghazali, who basically argued that the interpretations of the Quran had thus far been wrong, and attempted to, and for the most part succeeded in outlawing mathematics. And it turns out that it's hard to make like huge scientific discoveries without mathematics. And so they lost their dominance. The Chinese continued with their dominance and invented the cannon. By the way, the invention of the cannon was interesting because when the cannon was invented, people thought it was the end of the world. Now, the Chinese invented the cannon. It spread through Eurasia. The first time it was really used in Europe was in the siege of Algeciras, which was the Palestinians trying to take back Spain. And ironically, both sides had heard of the cannon before, and someone had tried to sell cannons to Algeciras and said, you can use these in defense of your city. And they said, no, this is not a weapon anyone's ever going to use. It's not really worthwhile. Sorry. So they went to the Palestinian forces, sold it to them, and they used it in the siege and ultimately retook the city. Now, people took one look at the cannon and said, that's it. It's over. Civilization is gone. Folks, there's no more civilization. It's over. And the reason is, as soon as you build something, somebody with a cannon is going to knock it over. And when they figured out how to put these things on boats, they're like, that's it. Every boat is ever made in the future is going to sink. This is what they thought. I mean, it was the end of the world as far as people were concerned when the cannon was built. And if that's all you know at the time, and if every structure you've ever seen can be knocked down by this super weapon, it's like the invention of nukes. Arabs are still here. Persians are still here, despite 5,000 years of war with the Arabs. British Empire fell. Roman Empire fell 5 times. Rome still exists. Their descendants still exist. England is still around and still very important. Here in the U.S., well, and actually before I get to the U.S., they also got bombed, the likes of which only Germany has seen before. And they rebuilt, and they built socialized medicine for their people, which they realized would be necessary to recover from World War II. Imagine living in England during World War II. So we're here talking about the U.S., this show, every night, almost every night. And it's bad news after bad news after bad news. And it's Trump doing and saying stupid shit. And I got to say yesterday that look, he's sick, he may step down, and there's been more evidence even today. It turns out yesterday, I had heard that J.D. Vance had actually said that he was prepared to take over if Trump had to step down. I didn't realize he said it twice, and yesterday was the second time. So it looks like they're aware. But for anyone who's got like this great hope, like, oh, hey, it's like, well, look, Project 2025 is still out there. The Heritage Foundation is still out there, and J.D. Vance is going to do whatever he's told by all of these guys. Now, he doesn't have the pull with MAGA, so it's a blow. But Epstein, which I thought was going to take out Trump, looked like MAGA actually cared. And I take offense that they stopped caring. I've tried to figure out, why do I get aggressive about this? Because those of you watching the show have seen I'll sit there and say, who knew MAGA cared about the rape of children? And that's a pretty offensive thing to say. But on the flip side, the evidence is crystal clear. The evidence that Trump knew and or was involved. There is depositions, actual testimony under oath that he was involved with a 14-year-old child and that Epstein set it up. We know that Pam Bondi's hiding something because she said, we're going to release it all, and we're not going to release a thing. Once she sees it. We're adults. Let's talk like adults. So if you don't care, then I get to say the rape of children really doesn't seem to bother you. I get to say that. So yeah, I get offended that MAGA took it seriously for a while and now seems to have dropped it. It's like, are you moral and ethical or not? Forget that it's your guy. If it had been Obama, who I actually campaigned for, I would still, and I'd sit there and say, look, the fact that there are people who say they're victims, they deserve to know the truth. It's apolitical. It's got nothing to do with, so let's have my guy testify. Let's have the files come out to spare the victims the fact that nobody knows, and they're trying to get the word out and say, this is what happened to me. It's not happening. So, yeah, when you're doing news and you're reporting these things, it's hard. And, I see you guys in here night after night. People come, they listen, and that's why we try to have some humor about it. Sometimes it's gallows humor, but we try to enjoy it. But try to enjoy the show. We try to enjoy the process of breaking some of this stuff down. Sometimes we make a really bad joke that we should never have made, and we end up apologizing for, like, years afterwards. But, hey, it goes with the territory. Human life expectancy is still longer than it's ever been. There have been 109 billion people to have lived in human history. 109 billion people to have lived in human history. And if you're living today, you're living at a time when there's the fewest amount of disease worldwide. We've all seen it. But in terms of, as a percentage of the population, we're healthier and living longer than we have ever lived. Now, my suspicion is we're going to take a decent step back from that. As we did, by the way, for World War II. Big events when really stupid people take over has a tendency to do that. I'm not delighted about that aspect. I'm really not delighted about Theil doing what he's doing and the likelihood that he may succeed, at least to some extent. But these people never succeed all the way. Hitler was stopped eventually. Genghis Khan. Evil, if you want to call it that, whatever you want to call it. These people who want to take over the world inherently self-implode. And there's a number of reasons for that. Lack of empathy, in my view, is the biggest one. The reason that we've come as far as we have is empathy. Now, I prepared a whole bunch of videos. I don't know what I'm going to show and what I'm not going to show, because some of it's just silly nonsense. let me go to one of my favorite things is videos of animals helping each other out. And the reason is because when you see an animal recognize suffering in another animal, especially of another species, and one of the videos I have here has a dog that grabs a drowning deer by the back of the neck and pulls it out of the water and saves its life. Well, the dog didn't benefit from this. There's empathy in most animals and especially mammals. And our empathy, our ability to say, hey, we need to reduce suffering for everybody, ourselves included, and for animals, other animals. That is the cornerstone of our success. It also makes us vulnerable to people who would take advantage of that empathy, of trust, and that's what abuser, I was looking for a word more aggressive than even that, but that's what people like Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Theil, any number of people, we've seen them who sit there and believe that the world is best ruled with an iron fist. And the good news is, over time, they always lose. Doesn't mean they don't make life miserable for us in the process. So I don't want to sit here and say that I don't look at the near future and say it's going to be difficult for a lot of people. But they lose. And we know why. It doesn't stop them from trying. In fact, they often know they're going to lose. They don't care because they want what they can collect in the meantime. I mean, I'm curious if you could ask a dead Jeffrey Epstein, what would he have done differently with his life? I'm genuinely curious, because if he's a psychopath or sociopath, he might not have done anything differently with his life given the chance. Doesn't have empathy, doesn't care. Well, life, it means getting stuck with people like that, and those people sometimes getting into power, especially when fed by people like MAGA, whose biggest problem is feeling disenfranchised. It's not that they're stupid, it's not that they're racist, although there's plenty of both. Plenty of stupid people on the left too, by the way. But it's feeling disenfranchised. That's what Trump gave them, was this, I'm going to speak for the coal miner and I'm going to get his job back. And by the way, I always thought he was lying. And now he's just sitting there going like, oh no, we're going to start doing coal again. I was like, wait, we're going to what? The coal is dead. You can't bring it back. It's like he's decided he's going to try to find a way. And I think he means it. Wow. So, what can we do? I'm lucky. I'm an educator. That means I have things I can do. I can learn as best I can about it and then pass that knowledge on. I have communication skills, presumably. Some of you watching was like, yeah, you've got communication skills. If you had production skills, that would be nice. But yeah. So, that's one of the ways I get to do it in a way that I love and is helpful. Teaching or educating is the silver bullet. It's one of the most important things I think you can do, other than being a doctor. But even doctors have to learn, so there's education involved there too. So I get to do this show. But I want to be mindful of my own mental health and the mental health of, the people who work here. And when we see these terrible things, and I mean, the Epstein, there's nothing. It is difficult for me every time I mention that name. I don't like doing it. I try not to let that come across. Because especially if you see that it's difficult for me, it makes it more difficult for you. And it also means then we're not going to talk about sometimes topics that have to be talked about. If they're not, then the victims suffered for nothing. So we talk about it. But it's hard. And I know it's hard on many members of the audience. I know it's hard on our mods. And it's hard on me. Some ways it's a little harder on me because I have to dive through and go look at all this information. I have to go through stuff I really don't want to go through. In some ways it's easier for me because I find it cathartic to be able to express this. I have the catharsis of doing that. You're sitting there listening going, well, wait, Peter Thiel's doing what? What happened? So we use humor. And I think a sense of perspective. And Martin Luther King Jr.'s line that the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice, has thus far been true. More people have more free time than at any time in history. More people have more rights than at any time in history. It is getting walked back. It will continue to be walked back. So we're going to have to fight it, but we're not fighting the bubonic plague. We're not fighting World War II. I don't know what the future's going to hold. It may get worse. It may get better. It may get better. I don't know. Thiel could keel over. People just sit there and say, well, nobody really wanted to do what he was. And again, these guys, people like this blow themselves up to infighting. Trump is his own worst enemy. The fact that everybody he's hired is incompetent is going to do more damage to his administration than any Democrat. Now, it's going to hurt us, too. So I'm not, overjoyed about it. But at least I can see an end game to this that doesn't end with all of us, the U.S. getting completely wiped out. Jim Lovell was the commander of Apollo 13, and he was in 1954. He was flying a plane in the Sea of Japan. He had taken off from the USS Shangri-La. It was an aircraft carrier. It was night, and there was some kind of electrical malfunction on his plane. And he radioed and said he couldn't locate the aircraft carrier. The aircraft carrier did their best to tell him where he was, but in his relative position to them, he wasn't sure, A, how he could find them, or B, even how he could land, because he couldn't get the altitude right, and if he was too low, it'd slam into the... he didn't have his altimeter, so he couldn't see the water. So if he can't see the water and he can't see the aircraft carrier, he has to eyeball it. If he's too low, he slams into the aircraft carrier. If he's too high, he overshoots the catapult and goes off and, maybe can try again. But he's running low on fuel. And he's in the middle of the Sea of Japan. Nobody's going to find him. This is it. It is the end of his life. He's done for. No fuel. Can't see, and the aircraft carrier's got all its lights off. There's no way to see. He's done for. So he's got a little light, but not enough to see a map. So he decides he's going to risk turning on one more electrical device. Turns on the light for his map. Boom! All the other lights and everything else that's remaining shorts out, including the radio. I think that's actually when he lost the radio. That's it. He's got nothing. He can't even see his own equipment anymore. All the backlights to it are gone, everything. No way he's going to make it through this. And then he sees a green trail of bioluminescent algae. This is the algae that gets churned up by the back of an aircraft carrier. He used it to identify how high he was, because he could actually see the trail of algae, and he could see it all the way to the aircraft carrier. And he landed. later became commander of Apollo 13, which nearly died, but they all got back alive from that one as well, despite the odds. But the irony that he points out is, if he had not turned on that light, he wouldn't have shorted everything else out. If he hadn't shorted everything else out, the background lights of all his instruments would have kept him from seeing the algae. He couldn't see the algae until he turned on his master light and shorted everything. In short, by making things worse, he got out of it. Those things happen more often than not. Battle of Dunkirk. How that happened, I have no idea. It shouldn't have happened. Screw up after screw up after screw up on the German side. They could have won if they had finished off the Allies at Dunkirk. Instead, they're like, let's just wait for 3 days. Oh, they're all there like fish in a barrel? We could just wipe out them. Nah, we're just going to wait. 3 days. Let everybody evacuate from Dunkirk. Saved the majority of the Allied forces. Well, if Giuseppe Zenghia had actually not picked a wobbly chair, if he had picked a chair that was straight, he'd have assassinated Roosevelt and would probably have lost World War II. A million ways would have lost World War II. A wind change. So I say all this because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know. We know Trump is a very bad fucking guy. We know that people around him want to do terrible things, including remove the right of women to vote. And it's not because they don't like women. I wish it was because they don't like women. It's because they're Christian Zionists who think we need to go back to, or want to argue at least for going back to, essentially a Christian caliphate. They want all of our rights taken away, except for as designated by the Bible. And that's bad for everybody. It's much worse for minorities and for women. But they don't want to just end there. And they'd like to start a war in the Middle East because Jesus isn't going to come back. And you know the story. I'm not going to tell you guys. You guys know the story. Anyways. We have a Supreme Court that seems to be handing Trump everything he wants. Do I think it's going to change? Probably not. Could it change? Yes. Stranger things have happened. We've seen Supreme Courts just suddenly flip. It's happened. Do I think it's going to happen here? No. Do I think something's going to happen here? Yeah. Because that's the way life tends to be, and these things give in to backstabbing. The fact that Hitler got as far as he did, by the way, was so much luck on Hitler's part. He was on an airplane with a bomb set to go off, and nobody knows why it didn't. To this day, we don't know why that bomb didn't go off. Bombs were tricky to make back then. You wanted it to be high-powered, stable, so that you could move it without blowing yourself up, and a timer that was accurate. You needed all three of those things, but back then the technology was only for two. You could have any two that you wanted. It could be small, stable, or reliable on the timer. You had to pick. So Hitler was on a bomb with a plane there. Klaus von Strassenberger detonated a bomb with Hitler in the room, but the reason Hitler survived, in fact, he was the only one uninjured. There was like 10 or 15 people injured. The only reason Hitler was the only one uninjured was because two things happened. One, Hitler moved to another seat. Two, the bomb got moved because it was in a briefcase, and then somebody moved the briefcase to the other side, and this placed two hard oak legs of the table between the bomb and Hitler. So when the bomb went off under the table, hit one leg, lifted the table up, hit the other leg, and boom, the table itself shielded Hitler and killed half the other people in the room and injured the remaining half. Complete friggin' luck. Luck cuts both ways. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is that, well, I'll say one more thing, and then I'll get to what I'm trying to say. It's history is nothing but 2 steps forward, 1 step back. There's always a step back. There's always a step back. We're starting to see in this country that step back. A lot of rights that we thought could not be taken away are starting to get taken away. And we have to fight, and we're going to keep doing our shows. We're going to keep talking about it. And we're going to still need your support. I hope you guys are going to be willing to support us, and I hope we can do it in a way that you feel you can support. And if we don't, go find someone who does. But keep learning and keep staying educated and keep fighting. Because eventually we get to the point where we're going forward again. How do I know this? Because human history that's written is about 5,000 years long, and that's all we've ever done, is 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Always. Every culture. We're in the step back now. It's not a time anybody would want to be in, but times are tough for everybody. J.D. Rockefeller was coming up in a time that for him would have been spectacular. It was a great time to have his kind of wealth, but he still lost a son to I think it was tuberculosis. I forget what it was. Whatever it was, actually, it's now treatable. It wasn't then. All his money meant absolutely nothing. I bet you'd have traded everything he had to keep his son alive. Couldn't do it. So remember other people. Remember that you have friends. Remember that you're not the only one who sees a lot of terrible things. And it's not just about Epstein. It's about the Supreme Court. It's about Trump. It's about the lack of respect for other people. And the idea that the best we as human beings can do is bully others into submission. And to see the EU recognize that that's not the way to do it makes me embarrassed. Makes me embarrassed that we've got a president who thinks that he's, Don Corleone, and that's the best way. That's what we, as human beings, the best we can achieve. That's what we should aspire to. Give me a break. That's what the Soviet Union did. How well did that work out for them? How pleasant is it to live in Russia right now? How pleasant has it ever been to live in Russia? You think Hitler killed people? Stalin killed about, what? I want to say 10 times as many people as Hitler? That sounds about right. No. Stalin killed about 30 million. 30 million, most of it in famine and mismanagement. That and the people that he shot. So we're doing okay. It doesn't mean you can't get sad. It doesn't mean you can't recognize the losses. They're important. But I hope that you can face them with a sense of humor. There's a lot to mock when it comes to Trump. And realizing we really are better than this, even if Trump doesn't know it. If Trump's too stupid to realize that we as human beings have better natures, and if he's too stupid to know how to interact with that, well, it's his loss. Makes him a bad human being. I don't have to be one. So I wasn't sure where this show was going to start, how I was going to play it, and I was going to try to do a few more jokes and make it a little more funny. And I am going to show one funny clip here that I didn't show, and then we do have one more very special thing for you guys. For those of you who have seen it, my rant on Donald Trump, you know what it is. Hopefully you're up for hearing it again. For those of you who haven't, you are in for a treat tonight, and we're going to have to talk about it. But you're in for a treat. So before we do that, and I'm going to go to the live chat because I've seen some super chats, which I really appreciate. And then we'll leave it at, we needed to take a break, I think, and we needed to acknowledge that it's been tough for a lot of, and I've noticed amongst friends who have nothing to do with In Time, friends who have something to do with In Time, the mods or whatever, and amongst our audience, that it's been stressful. So I think acknowledging that, but saying, hey, look, there's a larger perspective here. I don't want to take away the right to say I'm having a bad day, a bad week, a bad year. This whole administration sucks, and it's doing damage to a country that we love. But we also need to sit back, take stock, and remember to breathe, and remember that there is something we can do if we stick together, and if every day we just keep plugging at it. It sucks, but sometimes that's life. So this was a video I was looking for. I had a favorite video, which I don't have anymore, of animals helping each other, because I think that that's sort of the best way to show. I mean, if animals do it, I've had people say, well, the Bible, we wouldn't have compassion if it wasn't for the Bible. Compassion exists in almost every species on the planet. And our ability to have compassion is one of the things, again, that lets people take advantage of us. It's one of the reasons people like Trump can succeed as much as he does. But it's also one of the reasons we're the most successful species on the planet. This has nothing to do with compassion. This is just, while I was looking for one of the videos, I saw this. This woman apparently has taught her dogs how to ride. Oh dear. Okay, we're just going to... Yeah, so she's going to put the dog on there you go. So the dog is on one of those powered scooter things, and she's going to get one. And the other dog's already on one, and he's running a little late. You know, you can't. Oh, there you go. Okay. So yeah. I'm genuinely impressed. I'm going to say this. I'm genuinely impressed. What's the point of taking the dogs out for a walk, I have to ask at this point? I mean, this dog is not getting any exercise, but I am genuinely impressed by this. To the point that I'm thinking that maybe my dog, maybe he'll get a lot less exercise, but it'll impress the neighbors. As I saw that, I thought that might be worth it. So... let me quickly check and see what's been going on here. Is Andrew Person $20 super chat for the name pronunciation tutor fund? Yeah, okay. Fair. That, and for the producer fund, we need like a producer. Yeah. All right, so I haven't been watching the live chat, so I haven't been seeing questions, but I hope that this has been something to sort of reflect on going forward. I am going to do one other thing. It has to do with this, and that's one of the reasons, by the way, we didn't cover the school shooting very much, was because there's a lot of school shootings, and there wasn't anything original to cover about it or say about it, and I think we all sort of felt like we needed a break from suffering, at least watching and covering suffering. This is Trey Crowder talking about and he's a comedian, but I think he says he covers the position, I think, pretty well on it, and so let me play that, and then we'll talk about the Trump thing that I'm going to play for you. So let's, and is this, I'll really quickly set, we'll do that, okay. So this is 2 minutes, and the other thing about this that I like is he gets angry. Martin Luther King Jr. talked about anger. Anger that is unfocused is he called very destructive, but angry about injustice and doing something with that anger, something productive. There is a constructive kind of anger, and this is that exact thing. He is obviously angry, but he's not it's a constructive anger, and it's an honest anger. So let's see what he has to say.
Well, this school year just started. There's already been a horrible mass shooting in Minnesota, and I've obviously never made fun of a mass shooting, and I'm not going to, but I do feel like the way the right responds to them is fair game. Anytime it happens and news first breaks, cat turd and his insufferable ilk rush fearlessly to their keyboards to get out in front of it. Like, this is awful. Just a reminder to all the libtards out there, it is disgusting to take a tragedy like this and make it about politics. What, the shooter was trans? Wake up and smell the truth, America. I mean, hey, culture ain't going to war itself, you know. And then the tweets start, like, not only was this shooter trans, but so was this one. And
I started again because there was an echo. My bad. Let's start one more time, just because it's worth without the echo.
well, this school year just started, and there's already been a horrible mass shooting in Minnesota, and I've obviously never made fun of a mass shooting, and I'm not going to, but I do feel like the way the right responds to them is fair game. Anytime it happens and news first breaks, cat turd and his insufferable ilk rush fearlessly to their keyboards to get out in front of it. Like, this is awful. Just a reminder to all the libtards out there, it is disgusting to take a tragedy like this and make it about politics. What, the shooter was trans? Wake up and smell the truth, America. I mean, hey, the culture ain't going to war itself, you know. And then the tweets start, like, not only was this shooter trans, but so was this one, and this one, and this one. It's a pattern, right? And those stats are dubious and misleading, natch, but it doesn't matter. They've drawn their conclusions, which they only seem to do when it's convenient to them, by the way. I mean, it's anytime someone shoots up a school or gets caught with a basement full of lady skin lampshades or the like and turns out to be a white guy, so, you know, most of the time, these people just go, well, there's no way to make sense of something like that. But the less than 1% of the time it actually is a trans person, all of a sudden they got more answers than a coked up Ken Jennings. Right? Also, just calling this shooter trans is leaving out context, which checks out considering context is right up there with empathy and brown people on the list of things they want permanently banned from this country. But Westman was also into like Nazi shit and nihilism and left behind a barely coherent journals. Obviously, this person was, to use the clinical term, all fucked in the head, which I would argue is always the case for anyone who would do something like this. And nowadays, MAGA might actually agree. They're like, you're right. Mental health is the real problem here. Okay, first of all, y'all are the ones who tell men it's gay to feel stuff, so that's interesting. But okay, fine. So how would you solve the mental health problem? Easy. First, we ban all mental health drugs. Feels counterintuitive, but okay, then what? Then we return to the Lord. Ah, yes, the old put God back in schools, the old thoughts and prayers every time. Well, this tragedy happened in a church, and we get a new one every other week, so you'll forgive me for feeling like the T's and P's ain't exactly getting the job done. All right, but I better watch it. They're very sensitive about this right now. It's like, how dare you chastise people of faith for turning to prayer in their time of need? It's like, look, if you're a victim, no one's chastising you for praying. And even if you're a politician, no one's mad at you because you pray. We're mad at you because you won't do anything else. All right, Jimmy Carter would have caught a lot more shit if he just prayed for poor people to have houses, but he didn't. He prayed, and then he picked up a fucking hammer. All right, but the point is, y'all don't know how to solve the mental health crisis, and I don't either, but mental health is only one of the consistent factors here. The other thing that all mass shooters have in common, regardless of race, gender, ideology, is that they were heavily armed. All right, and you can deny it all you want, but if we just made it harder for dangerous, unstable people to get a gun, things might improve. Sure, those people would still snap, but if they did, maybe they'd accidentally blow themselves up in a basement, or they give up when they realize they suck at throwing ninja stars or whatever, and lives could be saved. But no, you're right. We'll just keep blaming trans people and bowing our heads and crossing our fingers and shit. I'm sure that'll start working any minute now. Love y'all.
That's his tour schedule. I'd like to keep that up because I want to make sure that he gets props for that. That was a that was very good. So a good example of righteous and moral outrage, which you get tired of feeling after a while too. So I did get one more. It was who was it? Ukraine F. Putin. Grateful for your awesome commentary and host. Thank you for all you do. Well, like I said, it really is. It's sort of my way of. I'm glad I can do it. I'm delighted, and I appreciate all the support that empowers me to do this. So as long as I can do it, I will, and that's really as long as people feel it's worth it to help and contribute, I'm going to continue doing it. So thank you very much. So I hope you've all had a chance to at least decompress in a little bit. What we're going to do now is we are going to play. I used to do, and I should probably do again, a series of rants. This was before In Time. And the idea of the rants was to speak as rapidly as possible. If you know, back in the 80s, there was that guy, I think he was the fastest speaker in the world. He did the Mattel commercials. And I can still speak just about that fast. I have to have a script. I have to practice. It takes a long time. But I wanted to sort of mimic that. I wanted to mimic Dennis Leary. I wanted to, and so I did a series of rants. One of them was on Donald Trump. This was during the primaries. He had not won the election yet for the first time. So to put this rant that you're about to hear in context, it is from, oh dear Lord, 2016 or something like that, probably maybe even a little earlier than that. And Trump had just said that we should kill the families of terrorists. And he was asked, too, it was like, so kill like the wife, the brother. And he said, yes. Just like the families of terrorists need to be killed. So I was a little incensed by that. And I was a little incensed by Trump as a whole and who he was as a person, what he was doing, Trump University, all that other stuff. So what you're about to hear is a rant from back at that time. So when you start hearing references to things that happened 10 years ago, that's why. I was listening to it earlier in preparation for this, and I was just like, it's amazing how little has changed. He was also talking about attacking Iran and all of these other things. So we will play that for you. After that, we're gonna do a redirect to 𝐒𝐚𝐬's stream. So it's about 15-20 minutes is the rant. The rant, because it is so fast, you may want to just slow it down on YouTube. Don't forget, you can have YouTube play at like 0.75 speed. There are people who've told me that they didn't enjoy the rant until they slowed it down, and I do get that. They were done a bit more as an exercise in comedy writing and anything else. So I did a couple of them. They're on my personal channel. If you go visit my personal channel, as are my debates, and a lot of the stuff I did before in time. So we will play that, and then it'll just go to the credits, and then we'll be done. But I wanted to thank you all for joining us, and hopefully this will leave you with some humor for the rest of the day and a positive outlook that things do change, and they do get better. And we've had some bad luck. We've had some good luck. We'll see where it goes. But my hope is that we can remember that we are all in this together, and we all see the same thing, and we're all pushing forward to restore the rights and dignity of all people, not just white cis males. Thank you all for joining us, and I look forward. Our next scheduled show is In Time with Xandering. We will be, that is Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Look forward to seeing you then. Have a good night, all.
An open letter to Mr. Donald Trump. Warning, some profanity is used. Dear Mr. Trump, holy fuckballs. I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry that your daddy didn't love you enough, or you were bullied in school, or whatever childhood trauma you suffered that made you think that your life wouldn't matter unless you stabbed that big pussy in the air the rest of us call a sky with a half dozen steel and concrete dicks 1,388 feet into the air with your name emblazoned across them like a tramp stamp on the back of a stripper's ass, passing out lap dances for $5 a pop in some shuttered industrial lot in the downtown Detroit area. You've got to stop taking it out on every living creature on the fucking planet because other people have problems too. I speak 7 languages, and there isn't enough fucking profanity in all 7 of them in the entire fucking history of the other 455 Indo-European languages combined to describe the kind of dick-sucking fuckwad you have to be to say that we should go around killing the families of terrorists. Balls the size of 𝐒𝐨𝐮𝐻 melons, but I hate to tell you that is not a requisite for being president of the United States. And it's people like you, people who have all balls and no brains, who go out and get other people's children killed. And while I don't mean to give you pause on your way into turning this country into a Sharia caliphate with enough medieval charm, compassion, and warm fucking fuzzies to make 𝐿𝐼 look like fucking Jimmy Carter raving on 3 tabs of ecstasy, you might be interested in knowing what you're talking about is a fucking war crime, and not one of those, oh, hey, if if we don't call it torture, then it's okay war crimes, but one of those, there's some really good practical and don't you know it, ethical reasons why we don't go around executing people's families kind of war crimes. What kind of medical grade hallucinogen do you have to be vaporizing, concentrating, smoking, refucking the hashing vapor before freebasing into one of those liquid nitrogen fueled ice dams you call a fucking femoral artery to not realize that if you start killing families just because of what one black sheep asshole does, that it's that kind of wanton disregard for human life that's making us enemies faster than we can kill them? Well, granted, not if you use gas chambers, but I didn't want to point that out because I don't want you to get such a raging hard-on that Julio, the night janitor at Trump Tower, who you pay minimum wage only because 2 pennies glued together with industrial-grade horseshit isn't legal tender, from having to break out his Mr. Reliable squeegee to clean off the latest Superfund site that is the top of your fucking desk every time somebody uses the words gas chamber correctly in a sentence. And you know what? Yeah, sure. I know it's nice to think that the United States of America is so star-spangled awesome that we can invade foreign countries for absolutely no reason, and I mean this, no fucking reason whatsoever. The UN, MI6, and half the world knew Saddam didn't have any weapons of mass destruction, and even if he had, he couldn't hit us with them even if he did triple the number of rubber bands on his Scud missile launchers. Clinton already got revenge for that fictitious Iraqi plot to kill baby Bush's daddy fabricated by the Kuwaitis on the off chance would be stupid enough to give them protection money, and I won't spoil the ending of that little intrigue. And the invasion certainly had nothing to do with the inhumanity of Saddam Hussein using chemical weapons that we gave him on 10,000 of his own people, because before the days when we were roasting marshmallows over the warm glow of Saddam's nuts, we didn't lift so much as a finger to stop mass genocide erupting in Darfur. And don't lie to me and tell me we want to overthrow a dictator and let the Iraqis suckle on the sweet, sweet baby juice of freedom because we break out in joygasms at the thought of installing brutal, illegal, and fascist dictators all over the world, where they're free to kill as many of their own people as they like so long as they stay in our back pocket. Here's an idea. Before we start lecturing people on freedom, let's stop propping up countries like the UAE, Qatar, and the rest of the Middle East. We give the dictatorial Royal House of Saud money, guns, and whatever they need to ruthlessly, brutally, and illegally oppress their people, in exchange for them exercising their OPEC veto power to grant us the cheapest oil anywhere in the world. We funded the economic boom of the 90s on the backs of innocent Sauds. Did you ever stop to fucking ask why nearly all of the hijackers were from Saudi Arabia? Think that might be a subtle hint that they're pissed at us? They hate our dictator-supporting, baby-bombing guts over there, and nobody could fucking blame them. And nobody can tell me that we give a rat's ass about freedom from tyranny for anyone but ourselves, and none of that shit has anything to do with Islam whatsoever. And of course this means we can torture people. Never mind that we used to have something called our principles and our word when we signed the Geneva Conventions, a set of rules, by the way, we expect our enemies to live by. Never mind that every country that breaks those rules always thinks it's justified and is always fucking wrong. Never mind that it doesn't work. It doesn't fucking work. We all know it doesn't fucking work, but it's cathartic and badass, and who cares that sometimes we get the wrong people? Because, well, hey, that Star-Spangled Awesome thing again, and we're on a crusade, so that makes it all right. And you burn our innocence and you burn our credibility at the altar of it doesn't fucking work. And yeah, I know, I'm a big pussy because I don't watch Fox News and get off on the idea that we rape little boys in Abu Ghraib, but at least I don't pretend to love baby Jesus and his mother as I hook up a guy's nipples to a truck battery, or pretend that I think God's gonna forgive me the shit because, well, he's the one who told us to go over there in the first place and everything we do is right by definition. And, sorry, I didn't mean to kill your buzz by letting that utter bummer of a thing called reality shatter the illusion by saying that maybe our ignorant ass actions have consequences and maybe we shouldn't be forgiven if we decide to let good intentions be our get-out-of-jail-free card that keeps us from doing the hard work of sitting down and taking a good hard look in the mirror before carpet-bombing countries 10,000 miles away. But hey, that's me. I'm part of the Blame America First crowd, thinking that maybe no means no, she didn't have it coming, and maybe somehow, in an alternate topsy-turvy universe, the children we drop bombs on do matter, didn't get what's coming to them. We're not the all-knowing badasses whose shit don't stink that we think we are, and the vast majority of Iraqis didn't want to throw flowers at us, but rather bullets instead, because the worst day they ever had under Saddam was still 10 times better than what their liberators gave them, and then to be so hung up on ourselves that we had the fucking balls to think that we were going to make them pay for it, which is really fucking gangster, and then expect that one of the little fucking ragheads wasn't going to put it together that maybe the real reason we were there is because once the Royal House of Saud finally collapses, OPEC is going to rape us like a French hooker in the back of a little alley called Rue the fucking Day, unless we find some poor little country charge in there with our Christian hearts bleeding into our boots, talking about how much we care about them, make billions of dollars for our oil companies, and keep our OPEC veto power. But hey, we're America. We're fucking perfect, and I'm sure that the ragheads are too fucking stupid to have figured that one out. And of course I know that this shit isn't your fault, Mr. Trump, but you can't survive without the coma-inducing, fact-ignoring black hole of a right-wing reactionary constituency that you call your base. And I know why they're voting for you. They're pissed. They're outraged. I get it. I really do. They're being marginalized and trivialized in a world where you can't work for McDonald's without knowing how to use a computer, but they still can't get the clock on their antiquated 8-track Betamax VCR to stop blinking noon. So supporting a massive, bloviating bullshitter like you acts like a surrogate cock that lets them stick their chests out with pride and adopt a healthy mob mentality that lets talk about lighting a black man on fire seem reasonable, because it's easier to glow onto the fact that you don't take shit from anybody and mistake that for good policy, sound judgment, and strong leadership than to ask what real-world impact these policies will have on us and the rest of the world. It's easier to say that you're honest and tell it like it is than to compare what you say to reality and to admit that you're setting more pants on fire than an iPhone 5C. And you know what they want? What they really want? They want the world to slow down. They want information to slow down. They want to untangle the complexity and say, yes, it really can be as simple as it was in the old days before boys kissed, blacks could become president, and the planet was rejecting us like a bad organ. But you can't roll back that clock. You can't unwind that spring. You can't undo the internet or turn off 24-hour news. And in this global economy and the age of interconnectedness, a butterfly flapping its wings in Saudi Arabia really can cause half of Manhattan Island to go up in flames. So I'm supposed to say that it's okay because you represent a genuinely disappointed, marginalized, and ever-increasingly disenfranchised wing of the Republican Party that feels like the world's walked away from it? Maybe they do have a genuine point hidden somewhere in all that addle-minded insanity. But what I don't know, what I don't understand is, where's my right to be fucking outraged? We elect my guy as president, he wins fair and square, and I watch as a wash of Sea Party fucking nutheads, so-called patriots who say they understand the Constitution real good, while painfully oblivious to the fact that it was carefully, deliberately, and painstakingly written so as to force all parties to compromise on the silly fucking notion that maybe forcing people to find middle ground might not be such a bad fucking idea, too stupid to know that every article, every paragraph, every sentence, every clause, every word, and every fucking piece of punctuation all have one thing in common. They were all a compromise. And I watch as these hollow patriots throw their toys on the fucking floor and say they're going to break them all if we don't play by all their fucking rules, and I watch them bring government to a grinding halt and point their finger to my guy and say it's his fucking fault. I live in a world where Michelle Bachmann, Sarah Palin, and Rick Perry can all get fucking elected. Rick Perry, who gives his constituency a Woody with thinly veiled suggestions about leaving the Union, but Texas ranks 40th in education, so they can't put two and two together and figure out that for every dollar they pay in federal taxes, the government gives them $1.30 back. 32% of their budget comes from the federal government, and they can't produce or sell enough oil that makes that up on their own, or operate an economy without the FDIC, Interstate Highway, or the Federal Reserve. But I've got to put up with them thinking they're doing us a favor by sticking around. Meanwhile, I get 70 cents on the dollar, meaning that my state is carrying their sorry asses, and I wouldn't mind, except that when I say I want universal health care because I'd rather pay a couple $100s a year so that some morbidly obese guy who can't pay the parking meter because all his money goes to cheddar wurst wrapped in bacon and deep-fried in bacon fat can get an annual checkup, cancer screening, and sound medical advice and free statins, rather than paying $44,000 when he keels over from a heart attack, gets dragged into the ER, and ends up needing to get his ticker swapped out while his family is thrown out onto the street because he can't work anymore. The hypocritical bastards say that that guy should be carrying his own weight. And I mind it when smug motherfuckers in states that I'm carrying deny science, deny global warming, deny evolution, and with their bottom-of-the-barrel education sit there and tell me that they're going to rewrite my textbooks and totally awesomeize them and make sure that every little American cherub can learn some alternate history where Christopher Columbus wasn't a genocidal maniac, the founding fathers were all Christians who didn't fuck their slaves, and the Constitution is the inspired word of God and the newly minted 28th book in the New Testament because nobody should have to live in a world where you can't make up your own fucking facts. But I gotta sit there and listen to your shit about a liberal bias in the media when this media won't call out any of this horse shit, and they're so terrified of being called biased that they won't speak truth to stupid. So I'm fucking outraged. But since there's supposed to be a fucking run-up in the room, I can't call you and your constituents out as the ignorant, homophobic, Islamophobic, xenophobic, nationalist, racist, fascist that they are and just sit here and take it as they complain all day. Fuck that. Because while your constituency is yearning for the Leave It to Beaver 60s, which never actually existed, I have to live in the real world with real fucking problems like climate change. But you and your ilk have no shame. No fucking shame, because you don't give a rat's ass about what damage you do to the economy for the rest of the world when you deny shit you don't understand. Here's a fucking thought. Instead of saying that the science is still out on it, or that your gut tells you it's not real, how about you pick up a fucking book, take a couple of hours and learn the basics, see what science is saying, learn the difference between ant culture and a fucking 100,000-year-old ice sample. Hint, ice cores are warmer, have more color, more feeling, and are less desperate for attention. And instead of parroting back that line, the science is still out, you tell us exactly what's missing that the science needs to satisfy before you'll believe it. But you can't because you don't understand it. You just know that there are votes to be had and deals to be done by saying that's all a conspiracy from China, which makes you a bottom-of-the-barrel two-bit whore who'll sell out the human race for a couple of dollars and some votes. And I have to listen as your party thinks to lecture me on common sense, but I don't think you know what that means since you use it to justify judging an entire 1.6 billion people based on what 1% of 1% are doing. Yeah, real fucking common sense. Islam has the same percentage of terrorists as any religion. Protestants and Catholics murdering each other, KKK firebombing churches and lynching people, and the assassination of abortion doctors. What kind of idiots think there aren't any Christian terrorists? Here's a hint. If you go to Uganda, don't be gay, Sparky. There are fucking Buddhist terrorists, for fuck's sake. You wanna know who they kill? Muslims. Maybe the religion isn't the fucking problem. Ever think of that? Maybe it's ignorant-ass imperialistic countries who pretend to give a shit about the suffering of innocent people but really only want cheap oil and big gulps and who will carpet bomb the shit out of anyone who stands in the way of that. You want to know why education, diversity, and engagement are important? Because that gives us perspective on shit so that we don't have to be slaves to our overreactionary adrenal glands and make our own problems worse. Your folks have learned that with age comes wisdom, but they fucking gag at the notion that there's a wisdom to be found in the rest of the world and the experiences of people who've lived different lives. You want to talk common sense? Fine. Let's go on a little journey. Since Yemen in 1992, Al-Qaeda has been trying to strike on American soil. For 10 years, they've tried to blow up transatlantic flights, take out Quantico, Langley, the Holland Tunnel, the Lincoln Tunnel, LAX, Logan, not to mention sporting a raging hard-on for killing the Pope. And I know it's patriotic to blame Obama for his fuck-ups while not violating America's little safe space by blaming Monkey Boy for September 11th. I'm okay with that. You want to know why? Because Because even if Bush hadn't wiped his ass with the daily briefings that warned him of the attack, it was going to happen. If not on 9/11, then some other time. It took them 10 years and a little luck to do it, but if you stick Ray Charles in front of a dartboard with 1 million darts, he'll get the bullseye eventually, with or without Monkey Boy tending bar. But we know where the failures were, and common sense says that a few fixes at the CIA, FTSB, and FBI would have solved the problem. Instead, we hand everything over to the Republicans and say, fix this. And this, the party of the Constitution, of freedom, and of small government, create the single largest bureaucracy in the history of the human race, expand government surveillance and warrantless wiretapping, gives government sweeping powers to detain prisoners and spend billions of dollars blindly warmongering all over the Middle East, and wipe out that budgetary surplus Clinton was nice enough to provide. Every year in this country, 40,000 people die in car accidents, 40,000 people die from gun violence, 40,000 to suicide, 60,000 each to influenza, pneumonia, and diabetes, and nearly 600,000 a year each for cancer and heart disease. And if you knew the first thing about science, you'd know that we can deal with these problems. We did it with polio, we did it with antibiotics. This isn't a stretch. There are solutions to these problems that are a lot less expensive than what we spend fighting terror and keeping up 95% of the world's foreign bases which belong to the United States of America. And that's just the beginning, because we've got corporations too big to fail. And after a meltdown in 2007, which nearly ended our economy, nearly ended the United States of America with food riots, oil shortage, no electricity, hell on earth, we came within a bull's ass hair of it. The conditions are worse today, and you can't talk about it because that's not what's going to get your people elected. And our military commanders are telling us on the ground that there's no military solution to this. We need to figure out what they want, why they're trying to hit us. We need to figure out what's motivating them, which is exactly what the terrorist-sympathizing liberals have said from the start. But we already know what the problem is. It's us. We're doing it. Our actions and blazing disregard for human life and the suffering of others. And you fuckers, if you had 1 ounce of common sense, you'd see all this. Do you even remember what it was like before we were terrified of the Middle East? Do you know that everything we've done since then has made the problem worse? And even then, you're still 100 times more likely to die at the hands of another fucking American, maybe a drunk driver in a drive-by shooting, than any fucking Muslim. You want to know something? And I know I'm going to get my ass kicked for saying this, but you want to hear something? Real common sense, real truth to power? 9/11 wasn't that big a deal. It was huge. It was staggering. I know. But was it really so big that we needed to do this to ourselves, turn on our friends, obliterate a country, torture people, destroy the Constitution, and head down this Trump-gilded road to fascism? Are you fucking serious? We blew every opportunity to de-escalate, to calm down and say that every country gets hit, it was our turn, it was going to happen eventually. Let's see what we can do to keep it from happening again. But since the gun-loving reactionary Republican was in charge, that wasn't going to happen. Instead, we said, bring it on. So yeah, I got just as much of a right... Fuck that. I've got more of a fucking right to be pissed about the state of this country than your fucking narrow-minded constituency, because I've got to fight narrow-minded dicknuts like you and your boys. Do you want to know why I love the Freedom Frogs? Because these people who can make a tank for 35 cents on the dollar because it only needs to go in reverse. 2 days after the Paris attacks, these people go call up the UN and tell them to triple the number of refugees they're going to take in. You know why? Because they don't think the jury is still out on evolution. They don't bomb other countries for revenge or in the name of God, and they know that the science is in on global warming and has been for a long time. And because, unlike Sarah Palin, they know that refugees get a year of background checks before the UN release them anywhere, then we here in this country do another year on top of that. So if you're a terrorist trying to sneak into the US, it's actually a lot easier to swim across the Atlantic Ocean than to come in as a refugee, dickwad. That's right, these fucking French, who could probably actually find Sodom and Gomorrah on a map, are beating the terrorists. How? Because they're not cowering in a closet somewhere curled up in a little ball with the lights out, tears streaming down their face crying, please don't hurt me. And you know what? They're fucking scared. All of them. They're all terrified, just like we are. But they know that that's how the bad guys win. The tip-off? It's the name. Terrorist. My 4-year-old figured it out with the help of Oscar the Grouch in the first 3 chapters of Hooked on Phonics. And hey, I was thrilled. What a relief to know that American integrity, courage, and Judeo-Christian ethics are alive and well. They're just all in fucking France. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that same idiotic trope designed to bail you out every time somebody points out just how stupid your fucking ideas are. That if I hate this country so much, I should fucking leave. But I'm tired of that fucking shit because you haven't cornered the market on patriotism, and this is my fucking country too. And excuse me for thinking that maybe it can do just a little bit better than it has. Excuse me for thinking that if we really are the greatest country in the world, then maybe we should start acting like it. You know what? If you're tired of the lamestream media and educated presidents and Hollywood liberals, here's an idea. Why don't you get the fuck out? That's right. If you don't like a black president who can add, if you're scared by the internets, if you fetishize the wild, wild west, want a Bible in every courthouse, don't believe in evolution or global warming, and think women are chattel to be seen and not heard, then get the fuck out. When did you put us on the defensive by saying that we're the un-American ones and that somehow you have the better ideas and are the most reasonable exclusively and only because you shout louder than I do? You're the party of fear, and when you're not scaring the shit out of your own constituents, you're cowering my guys. And you've turned us us into an empire, a motherfucking empire. And like all empires, we think we're not. We think we're benevolent, imposing our Pax Americana on the world, expecting them to be grateful for our grace, and destroying them if they're not. We're the biggest exporter of guns in the world, the biggest exporter of death, and with 95% of the world's foreign bases, over 600 of them, and a military budget equal to that of every other country in the world combined, we're a motherfucking empire. But like all empires before us, from Rome to England, we will collapse under the weight of our own military and arrogance if we don't get off of this economy of fear and death. Think it can't happen? Think it won't? That's what every fucking one of them thought. And to even suggest a more measured, nuanced approach is to hate your country, blame America first, give therapy to the terrorists, and fly in the face of American bloodlust and revenge for other countries that have intruded into our lives, and I'm fucking sick of it. And here you are, the next piece in this Orwellian jigsaw puzzle, sliding into place to highlight the utter insanity that is American politics that justifies cruelty, bloodlust, and revenge under the guise of protecting oneself in this, one of the safest countries in the world. So let's bomb the fucking ragheads and starve the wetbacks out of this Judeo-Christian Eden, where we love the Bible only so long as it lets us hate and subjugate gays, Muslims, Jews, blacks, and that whole other half of the human race that you say loves men only for their money, and in your case, I believe it, but that the rest of us nonetheless usually call women. And I've used a lot of swears, Mr. Trump, but I want you to be able to understand at least a third of what I have to say, because you don't know enough about history, politics, or the human condition to understand just 1/10 of how much I just pwned your ass. Yes, I know the fucking O is missing, but dick nuts like yourself don't get to ask why, because no matter how much money you have, that shit will always be above your pay grade. And I'm sorry if I've offended you, but I don't feel guilty because I don't hate you. I don't fucking hate you. Okay, I don't like you very much, but I don't fucking hate you because I don't respect you enough to bring myself down to the level of hating another human being, and because no matter how bad you are, you will never turn me into one of your ignorant-ass, blind supporters. And I'm pissed because the right should be doing something about your ass, because they say they put country first, but really, when Colin Powell stands up and says you can't put Sarah Palin one heartbeat away from the presidency, he speaks truth to power, you kick his ass the fuck out. So yeah, they put country first immediately after their own party. So now I have to sit here and tell you that you and your kind have been fucking me and mine over long enough. I'm gonna own my rage and say that your ignorant fuckwad constituency has done enough fucking damage. Because just like you, I want to make our country great again. And it starts by making sure that the closest thing you ever get to an Oval Office is that gold-plated throne you call a toilet, and by not letting fear, ignorance, and terrorism control the fucking agenda. It starts with compromise and working together, making friends faster than we make enemies, building schools, not leveling them, and not going alone, and by not telling the rest of the world to go fuck themselves, and by saying that the emperor has no clothes, and telling it like it is, and calling you and your constituents out for the race-baiting, Islamophobic motherfuckers you all are. Peace out!